Superhero Stuff You Should Know is part of the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Ben from Superhero Stuff You Should Know, and I have an important announcement for you guys. At the end of every single episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know, you might hear us shout out to our fans, one of whom is Matt Herring, who was one of the original Superhouse fans. He's always given us his support, and now it's time that we support him. We've just recently found out that Matt has been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And as a cancer survivor myself, I know personally that there's a lot of emotional and financial strain that comes into that. His wife, Kelly, has set up a GoFundMe account at gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt. And hopefully you can help reduce the financial strain to that, as well as some of the emotional strain that comes with that. Again, that's gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt.
Matt Herring was the first, I guess you could say, true Superhouse fan. We were Superhouse at that time. You know, the first fan of this podcast and what we do here, and has always supported us, talked about us, and he's from a town close to where I'm from, and so we share that as well, and just a huge superhero fan, and, you know, nerd like the rest of us, and now he's going through that, and if you could donate just at least any amount of money to that link that Ben just said, that would be truly appreciated. Just hang in there, Matt. You'll beat this thing soon.
And that's when I called him a Dicksplash. The worst insult there is. What do you think, Clark?
Pete, I think you called me a Dicksplash at one point, and I don't really understand what that's supposed to mean. Like, I wasn't...
That hurt your feelings, didn't it? Like, you little baby. Dicksplash. You dummy.
Actually, I was too confused to be hurt, honestly, Pete. I was kind of just like, what kind of insult is that? I've never heard that before.
You know, was a dick splashing on water. You know, sometimes if the water's too high in the toilet.
When does that ever happen?
When you sit down and take a shit, it could happen. I don't know.
So, in this scenario, Pete, are you calling me the dick or the toilet or the splash on? I don't understand the terminology here.
Well, it's just the dick that splashes, man. It's just funny, you know, like dickhead, dick, boner. People say that word. Dick Van Dyke. You know,
it sounds to me that you just kind of made it up and thought it sounded cool.
Yeah, I did. It's cool, man. I mean, it's like a cool insult. You're a dick splash.
Yeah. Just wanted to tell you, I talked to Jordan, and he didn't understand why you called him Dicksplash either. I don't really think this thing is having the effect that you wanted. Not like I want you to have that effect, but still.
That dumb Dicksplash. He doesn't know anything. It's the coolest insult there is.
Pete, I don't think it's working for you.
Whatever, man. So what would you do? What would be better than Dicksplash?
I wouldn't call people names. That's what I would do. You ever think about that, Pete?
Not call people names. That's a dick splash move. I don't. No, that's stupid. That's an oink fart move. Fuck that. That's dumb.
Pete, I haven't heard that either, but I think that's a little bit more.
You had never heard of oink fart?
It's just a little more funny than insulting at this point.
It's badass. You just don't know what you're talking about. I am a connoisseur of insults.
You're not really. You're just kind of just combining two unrelated words into one and hoping that people get insulted by it.
That's what it is, dick, head. That doesn't make any sense at first, but now people just like it.
Well, it at least does make sense because that's like the tip of the dick. Nobody talks about anything splashing on it. People, I don't even know how I'm getting into this part of this conversation, but yes, like that does make more sense than oink fart. That just sounds like you're. It's just I don't even understand. Are you saying it's a pig's fart? Are you saying that the sound of the oink is a fart itself?
I'm saying the person's like kind of fat because that's terrible. People that are fat are bad. And
then why don't you just call them fat?
And then they're a pig. Pigs are fat. They oink and they fart stinky. There you go. It makes total sense.
I think it's a little too complicated for people to get as an
insult.
So
they're just not as smart as me, so they're just dumber than aardvark shit.
Okay, Pete, I get that this is what you just do. I guess, you know, since most people aren't really being insulted buy it, it's probably not a big thing. It's probably better, honestly, that you keep doing this as opposed to like real insults. So I guess keep doing what you're doing.
So I'm not actually hurting people.
No, not at all. I think you're just confusing a whole bunch of people. This is probably why, no offense, but this is probably why you're sitting alone on the bus.
What?
I mean, if you said less about, dig, oint, fart, splash stuff, maybe I would sit with you and we could be friends. But, if anything, I'm just kind of a little bit more confused most of the time around you just by the things that you say. If you could just not say that, I have a feeling we could be friends.
So I've been the thump twistle the whole time.
I don't know what that means, but I guess, yes, you have been the thump twistle the whole time.
God damn it, I've been the thump twistle. God, this is worse than being a vagina foot. I'll go and rethink my ways, Clark.
Gee, just helping to correct other people's ways seems to be working out for me. Maybe I should try this as a career. Welcome to Smallville, which is where we've landed as we go into part 2 of Man of Steel, Zack Snyder versus critics. This is Ben, and with me is my co-host
Andrew. Everybody, we've taken that dick ship and we have dick splashed into a lake in Smallville, and we've made it. We've made it to part 2, everyone. If you haven't seen part 1 or listened to it or whatever, go back and listen to that. We talk about our positions on it a little bit weirdly in detail, so I think we're the rubber meets the road a little bit more in this episode, probably.
Yeah. So for those who need a recap, as I've said in part 1, neither one of us are necessarily Snyder stans, nor are we haters of Zack Snyder's stuff. We appreciate a lot of his decisions as well as criticize a lot of his decisions, and we've done that with Christopher Nolan, Joel Schumacher, Tim Burton, Richard Donner. We've done that with basically everybody. So we're not going to treat Snyder any different. There are things that I appreciate about Snyder that other people don't, and there are things that I criticize about him, and same thing with Andrew. And sometimes we disagree on where we side with Snyder's decisions and where we side with the critics. So that is why we're doing this.
Snyder has the power of Michael Bay, but is a lot more artistic, I think, in a lot of ways.
I'd say there's a lot more thought into it, yeah.
Yeah, a lot more thought into it. I mean, sorry if you're a Michael Bay fan, but I'm not so much a fan, although that first Bad Boys movie was great. But other than that, I'm not generally a fan, especially the Transformers movies. But anyway, it's interesting how Snyder kind of lines up with some of his contemporaries.
Yeah, exactly. So for here, our last score, we left off with Snyder 1, critics 1, and then I think the last thing we brought up we disagreed on, and that's where it just kind of washes out. So we're at a complete tie right now. We left off.
Where will it go from here? No one knows.
Yeah. We left off in Smallville with Jonathan Kent saying, being asked, should I have just let those kids die? And he just says, maybe. But this does lead into a very important scene where he shows Clark the rocket ship that he landed in, the Dick rocket ship, as Andrew noted, that splashed into the lake of Smallville.
Man.
It does lead into a very heartfelt moment that's right out of the comics where Clark says, can't I just keep being your son? And Jonathan says, you are my son. That comes comes directly from Geoff Johns.
In the trailer, it's great. This is one of the better parts of the movie right here.
Yeah. So that directly comes from Superman's Secret Origin, written by Geoff Johns and illustrated by Gary Frank. And it's no coincidence either. Goyer wrote the introduction to Superman's Secret Origin and credited Geoff Johns for this. So I'm going to have Andrew read as David Goyer here.
Right there in that moment, Geoff contextualized Superman in a way that I'm not sure has ever really been done before. I had an aha experience when I read that. For the first time, I was able to grasp how lonely Clark must have been when he was growing up. And what a sacrifice Clark must continually make by being Superman. Don't you get it?
Yes, we do, Mr. Goyer. Thank you. So there's a lot of Geoff Johns in this, which is kind of a shame considering the current accusations that Ray Fisher is discussing with Geoff Johns. We won't get too much into it, but I'm just saying that it's a shame considering that he seemed to be such a big influence on Snyder that he doesn't get along with at least one of the members of the Justice League crew.
Yeah.
Probably more than that, but
lots of drama
we don't have anybody
going on
yet.
in the DC as usual.
Let's see. Jonathan Kent also says you were sent here for a reason, which is a line directly from Superman the movie by Jonathan Kent, Glenn Ford's Jonathan Kent. So those are some of the other influences there. And that's
Destiny, sort of
Yes.
almost religious, but Destiny's not necessarily religious. But yeah, it kind of get harps on some of those. It's playing some of those notes.
Yeah, which is interesting because of the fact that Jor-El was like, you get to make a choice, really. But I mean, there's a specific choice that he has. It's not like he can just go off and be a musician. He's got other things that, like, what does he do with these powers? I mean, how irresponsible would you feel, if you had that ability and you were no offense against musicians, but you know what I mean. Right,
doing anything other than that shit, pretty much. So
exactly.
Every time he's Clark Kent, he's essentially kind of being selfish in a sense, but he also wants to lead a life. He wants to be normal in a way. So he wants to be selfish every time he puts his glasses on. That's a like underlying logic of Superman,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like, what if this gets out of hand? I would be Superman 24/7, and I would always be saving people and feeling guilty about those I couldn't save. Like those are random people who I just didn't know were in trouble at the time. You can't be everywhere at once.
In the animated series, he says, "I'd go crazy if I was Superman all the time," which is, I think it's that, and that's a very interesting thing that they added to their little mythology there. I think that shows a little something,
I think you have to. I think you have to bring that up and answer the reason why he wouldn't just go out and do that. It's like, well, because I grew up as a human being. I have human emotions and feelings. I can't always be doing that.
You have to be.
Even Superman gets burnt out.
You have to take some me time, Ben. Some time for yourself.
Yeah.
A time.
Yep.
Fortress of Solitude, or back on the farm, or whatever. Even Superman can go a little crazy. You gotta be a little selfish, kind of. But it's an order. No one wants to see you go crazy. So
Yeah.
it's one of those like
Pretty much.
good me time. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Clark doesn't have much time for me time in the present day, where he works as a waiter and sees his coworker get basically what looks like sexually assaulted, and he tries to intervene, and the guy kind of just he throws the beer can at him, but Snyder wanted to show an instance where Clark kind of has to turn the other cheek, so to speak.
Yeah, this was a good scene.
But this does lead into the next controversial moment that I'm sure you were predicting, which is that when the guy leaves the diner, his truck has a whole bunch of telephone poles stuck through it. And the reason why this is controversial is a lot of people feel that Superman wouldn't really be this petty with his powers, and that he kind of just destroyed this guy's livelihood with the truck or whatever, just to kind of get revenge and get back at him, sort of things. There is some whataboutism involved too in this, where from the other side, where Snyder fans bring up, well, you guys seem to be okay in Superman 2 when he beats up that trucker dude.
That's right, trucker callbacks. I forgot about that.
There's a trucker callback, because he also encounters a trucker when he doesn't have powers in Superman 2. However, I'm just like, well, let's treat things in its own story. Because just because it happens in one story doesn't mean it excuses something other, though in this case I think they were calling out hypocrisy on here. But when it comes to this specific choice, how do you feel when it comes to Clark sort of doing this versus what people are saying in terms of their opinions of like, Superman wouldn't do that? Like, what do you feel?
It is petty, but he's not Superman yet. Also,
true. However,
so there's a character arc that sort of here, I guess.
Yeah, but they don't call attention to it.
That's true. That's true.
So here's how I feel. I agree with you, but also I like, if the whole point was for Clark to learn better, then dramatize that. Don't just be like, yeah, but he'll get better later. Like, actually turn it into a learning lesson for Clark so we can see him evolve. So
yeah,
I would do something where maybe, he did that, the guy comes back in and he's all horrified and stuff, and he breaks down that like he doesn't have a job anymore, he doesn't know what to do, and Clark meanwhile feels guilty because he's just like he just had his revenge.
That's
and stuff,
true.
And I think,
that would have been cool. That would have been
Clark
cool.
Clark maybe sees that he can't solve everything that way.
That would. It's hard to not ever say that phrase again. I'm sorry, but it would have been better. It would have been better.
And then I guess my idea was that not only that, but Clark decides, okay, I fucked up. Here's a way to make it right. And so he like hooks the guy up with like a new job, and the guy apologizes to him and the waitress. And then Clark moves on, and he's like, okay, I saw the problem, but that could have gone badly. Like now I know I can't just solve everything with my powers.
I think Snyder likes that. I'm just talking out of my ass here, but it feels like Snyder just likes that visual of the logs through it.
Yeah.
There's a spectacle to it also. It's not just
Apparently,
Clark squeezing the engine parts or something. It's full on big ass logs, which is kind of visually cool. But I agree, it's petty. Critics
on this one.
Yeah,
I agree. All right, so Snyder 1, critics 2.
Not
Apparently that's
film
an
ruining. Not film ruining.
Not film ruining, but it is one where I'm like, I agree with just the feeling of like, I don't know about that. Apparently that's a real semi truck that they stuck telephone poles through.
What?
I don't know how. I don't know how.
Really? I totally would have thought that was CG.
Apparently it's a real thing, according to I think this was on the Snyder commentary where I picked that up. So
that's nuts.
That
man.
is
nuts.
This is less of a Snyder versus critics thing, but I also kind of found it a little weird where he's being bullied or abused when he's in Henry Cavill form. I'm like, this guy's huge.
Well,
again,
but that guy might be drunk.
Yeah,
guys are gonna be. Guys want to take down a big guy too. You know what I mean?
It's just
there's no limits to toxic masculinity, Ben.
Yes, I know, but in terms of the conceit of him being an outcast, and this is kind of what we talked about a little bit with Jim Fagan and in the Is Superman Cool episode, but then sometimes it feels a little contradictory to be like, oh, he's an outcast, but he also looks like this drop-dead handsome dude at the same time. And I'm just like, okay, well, you have to make clear what makes him an outcast. What makes him an outcast is the fact that he has to hide this part of himself, not necessarily that he's getting
other
bullied
people
all the
don't
time.
see him as an outcast, especially as an adult.
Yeah.
He feels like he is one,
right? And that's
because
my
of
point,
who
though.
he is.
Yeah, that's my point though, is that it feels sometimes that the movie's sort of treating him as an external outcast, where other people treat him that way and they bully him. But I'm just like, he also, like, he doesn't in real life. He also, at least in Henry Cavill form, it's kind of tough to see that.
I understand.
To see that happening.
He's
But,
not. He's
again,
an
it's minor
outcast in
thing.
this scene, though. He's just
Not
the guy's pissed
not
at him
necessarily,
because
it's
he's getting in the way of the girl or whatever.
Well, it's just the overall feeling of that he's this loner outcast dude who doesn't get along. Like, he gets chastised by the other fishermen when he's on the boat.
Do they say? They call him Greenhorn. That's right.
Yeah, because he fucks up at that point. Like, it's a common thing. And then you've got all the flashbacks of him being bullied as a kid. I'm like, okay, like I get where you're going with this. I just feel that the outcast part of Clark isn't that other people treat him like shit. It's that he always has to hide a certain part of himself, and he can't completely be like everyone else, even though he badly wants to be like everyone else.
Right.
So again, might be a little nitpicky on my part, but I thought that was worth bringing up. All right, we finally get to meet Lois Lane in the next scene.
Finally.
Yes, Lois meets Clark, where Clark is posing as a man named Joe, and the Easter egg, Joe, probably comes from his middle name, because his middle name is Joseph, Clark Joseph Kent, so that's probably where he got that from. Other trivia is that Lois, when she shows up, is greeted by a man named Jed Eubanks, who is played by actor Tamo Pennicott. Both Amy Adams and Tamo Pennicott were in Smallville. In different episodes.
Amy Adams was in Smallville?
Amy Adams was in Smallville in the first season, I believe. She played a character named Jody Melville, who was a villain in the episode Craving, where she wore a lot of prosthetic makeup for this role, where she was overweight until the kryptonite allowed her to be thin only if she absorbed the fat from other people. So very weird.
Wow.
But kind of hilarious when you look back at that. That's going to be future Amy Adams.
Smallville got weird
On
with
that.
it. Amy
Smallville
Adams
got
was,
weird from the beginning,
she was
yeah.
almost a Power Ranger in one season or another, but her agents
Really?
told her not to do it.
I don't think that would have.
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily would have ruined her career or anything.
Depends on timing, I guess, but yeah.
I guess so, yeah.
She turned out okay, I guess.
Let's see. Tomo Pennicott also played two characters in Smallville. He played a character named Vince Davis, who was a man brought back from the dead in an episode called Resurrection. And then he also played a character named Wes Keenan in the episodes Nemesis and Prototype, who was Lois Lane's first love in Smallville continuity. So there's a lot of Smallville actors, actually, in this movie. And I'll go into more when they crop up.
I didn't know there was so much Smallville in this.
There's a lot of Smallville influence.
This is
in
one of my
frankly.
biggest surprises so far in our ongoing series.
Let's see. What are your thoughts on Amy Adams as Lois?
I think she's good. I don't understand. I mean, people want Margot Kidder or whatever. She's, OG for sure. I mean, not even the most OG, obviously, but I think she's good. She doesn't have as much to do as as you'd like, I guess. But as her being Lois and her playing opposite Cavill, I think it mostly works. I mean, what do you think?
I feel like she does well with the role, but I also feel like the role, the way that it's written, doesn't quite have the same. It's not the same spunk that you're used to, and I'm not just talking about Margot Kidder at all. I'm talking about all the previous versions of her.
Where she's like, "See ya, Chief," and
Fleischer,
Fleischer,
Joan Alexander, and Fleischer, Raleigh Bester from the very beginning.
Yeah,
like a whole bunch of different Noel Neal. Like I think the most Lois-like, I guess, out of in terms of that type of spunk is when she has the whole line about, okay, if you guys are done measuring dicks, can we get on with it type of thing.
Yeah, so she has a little bit of that in there.
She's just a little bit, and I feel like I wish that there was more. It just feels like a very subdued Lois compared to the versions that we've seen.
Does she have many scenes with Perry White, though? That's when she's spunkiest, generally, right?
Yeah, and I just feel like she's just kind of normal in that. I don't really feel that she... Yeah. It's not the same. I'm not saying that's a bad performance or anything like that, but in terms of representing Lois, it's kind of like it feels very subdued, and I feel like that kind of in some ways makes the character's personality a little more boring, in my opinion. They do give her a lot more to do when it comes to, in the Ultimate Cut for Batman vs. Superman, she has a whole investigation subplot. Like, technically, she's the one who gets Lex Luthor in jail by the end, not Batman or Superman.
Okay.
Really. And in this one, she gets a little bit more when it comes to helping to take down the Kryptonians. She's got that whole sequence where she's firing at them with that gun when Jor-El is helping out. So it's cool, but Amy Adams is a great actress. I just don't think that her Lois stands out compared to other versions, personally. So,
all right.
Let's see. Again, not a Snyder versus Critics thing, just something that I thought I would bring up. Let's see. Okay, so this is another... We are introduced to a whole bunch of other characters when Lois arrives. We're introduced to Colonel Hardy, played by Chris Maloney, who's also Commissioner Gordon in the Harley Quinn show.
He is? That's great.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite Gordons, actually, just because it's so comedic.
Yeah. So completely different type of performance, but same actor. And I think a lot of people, when they found out he was playing a military man, were wondering if he was going to play General Sam Lane, the father to Lois Lane. But I don't know, age different wise, if that would have really worked. But it would have been cool to see Lois's dad involved in this because of how much of she grew up as an army brat. She's very much part of it, but it's never really referenced ever in this continuity.
And Adams and Ma Kent, they're only like 10 years apart or some shit in real life.
Jeez, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think so. They're fairly close.
I do think they age up Diane Lane a bit. I think they
Diane Lane,
age her up, with the makeup and the gray hair. I do think that they do that, and that's probably because they wanted her to look the way she does in the flashbacks, and then they would just age her up later, as opposed to doing the reverse.
Yeah.
Let's see. We're also introduced to Richard Schiff as Dr. Emil Hamilton, who's in the comics as well as a prominent character in Superman the Animated Series. we technically get more than one Dr. Hamilton, because in the same scene we get introduced to a character played by Alessandro Giuliani, who also played Dr. Emil Hamilton in Smallville. So there's another Smallville actor here in the
Hamilton,
same scene.
The doctor, the scientist he's always talking to.
Yeah, the bearded scientist at Star Labs.
Almost an Alfred type in the
yeah.
animated show.
Yeah, though he turns on him later when you watch Justice League Unlimited.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Hamilton's part of Cadmus in the Unlimited show.
I'm watching out of order, kind of. I already saw all of JLU, but okay.
Right.
I got you.
Yeah. But Alessandro Giuliani plays one of the army guys who also played Dr. Hamilton in Smallville, so it's kind of cool seeing both Dr. Hamiltons at once. Snyder apparently did not cast him for this. He said that the main reason why he cast him was that this actor was also in Watchmen. So Alessandro Giuliani played a scientist who is looking at the screen where Dr. Manhattan is on Mars, and there's the smiley face on it. And in this movie, Alessandro Giuliani's character, when he rushes out, when he hears that the spaceship's taking off, you see that he's been looking at Mars on the screen. So apparently Snyder was trying to do a little connection there. And according to his commentary, even considered putting in Dr. Manhattan in the shot.
What?
For as a little crossover, but he decided against it because that probably is way too much, I think.
At that time, the before Rebirth, the Watchmen universe was separate from the standard DC universe.
That too. So this is kind of foreshadowing of that, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe he didn't want to crossover universes so much as he wanted to put an Easter egg to his own fucking movie they did in the past.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. Let's see. Clark goes into the Kryptonian scout ship that landed 20,000 years ago. And when he's there, this is a known Easter egg. There's a bunch of pods containing Kryptonians, but one pod is open and noticeably empty. And people believed at the time that this is Kara Zor-El, his cousin, the future Supergirl, and it was even written like that in a Man of Steel prequel comic written by Goyer, Snyder, and Geoff Johns.
So this is definitely not even fans speculating. This is definitely part of their plan, or
well,
it was
yes,
at least.
Yes and no, in terms of the empty pod.
In terms of that's Supergirl, it's supposed to be Supergirl. It's not like we thought it was Aquaman and Snyder's just playing along now. Like this was part of the plan all along.
There was definitely a plan involved. However, even though Snyder and Goyer were involved with that comic, Snyder later on said it wasn't a hint for Supergirl. It was a hint at quote unquote something more. So he says,
so that would be Doomsday again?
Maybe. He says that was definitely by design, so stay tuned. So you and I will speculate on who could be an ancient Kryptonian who escaped, who isn't Supergirl, and probably isn't Doomsday either. That would be kind of redundant in my opinion. But we can cover that in the Patreon just to see who the hell could this be.
Okay.
So that'll be cool. Let's see.
I have other than Supergirl, I don't know.
Oh, you do know a lot about the ancient Kryptonians after the Rowism stuff, so
yeah, but they're gonna go. You think they're gonna go that route? And Snyder, I mean, nothing's out of the question, I guess. But that's just
Snyder. I mean, look, he took all the names from the Phantom Zone villains from the comics in here. They had the whole moon being broken with a Doomsday explanation. Like anything goes at this point, I think.
You think the Kryptonian Nightwing was in that goddamn ship?
Maybe. I mean, all I can say is that in a line that was cut from the Zack Snyder Justice League that's in the trailer, at one point Steppenwolf says that the reason why they can invade is that there's no more Kryptonians, plural. So who knows? Maybe a Kryptonian was part of the defense against Darkseid's invasion in the Snyder Cut. We'll just have to see in March. Let's see.
All right.
We'll speculate in the Patreon. Let's see. Clark meets Lois more formally this time, where he ends up having to cauterize the wound. And that was kind of cool, I think. Snyder wanted to show that he can see internal injuries and that was capable of doing that type of healing. And, you know, this is also where I get to say, like...
Oh, yeah, because Kalex or some robot that's defending the ship fucks her up.
Exactly. So he helps her out there.
There's also like really subtle there's some subtle acting here from Cavill, I think, which is really good. I think the idea is that the heat vision is kind of one of the more taxing things that he does. And it seems like it kind of strains his eyes. If you go back and look at those scenes, Cavill is doing a little bit of like, my eyes are being strained kind of acting, which I think is pretty
That's
cool.
pretty cool, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, it's over here where I'm just like, yeah, this Clark definitely saves people. Already he saved the people on the oil rig. He tried to defend the waitress. He's saving Lois here. He saved the kids on the bus when he was growing up. Like,
That's right. That's right.
Like this is definitely...
That robot too, that robot there to me feels dangerous. Also, for some reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe that's just me, but the way I don't know. I just feel like that robot will just
like Kryptonian robot.
I mean, we saw it with Lois a little bit, but yeah. So, but yeah, he's saving people a lot in this movie. It's just when they get to the end, people have the problem with that. But I guess we'll get there. Won't we?
We will. Let's see. Lois eventually, probably not this episode. Lois goes back to work at the Daily Planet, where we meet Perry White, played by Lawrence Fishburne, and I believe he's the first African American Perry White that we've ever seen in all media. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
One thing that was kind of criticized was the expositionary. I'm not going to do a Snyder versus critics thing, because it's just one line that didn't have any resounding implications in terms of people's morality or character, like the whole maybe thing did with Jonathan Kent. But Lois at one point says, "I'm a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter" to Perry, and people are just like, "That's that's a little on the nose to that."
Yeah.
So,
do you say that all the time, Lois?
As if Perry doesn't know that,
I know that.
And then Clark,
Pulitzer.
the scout.
I say Pulitzer.
I say Pulitzer too. Yeah. When Clark, the scout ship's taken off, and Clark meets the AI version of Russell Crowe's Jor-El, and it's here that pretty much I had to bring up a little anecdote where this was not the first time that Cavill and Crowe have met. So there's a story that they told where Crowe was in London, I believe, and he was shooting a movie called Proof of Life, and he was with the actor who plays his son in the movie, and they were watching a rugby game, and one of the rugby players was Henry Cavill, who recognized him. Henry Cavill was 16 at the time. He was also not Fat Cavill anymore at that point. He had I guess lost the weight after playing rugby, but he obviously noticed Crowe, who's a big star at this time with like Gladiator, LA Confidential, and all that, and asked Crowe about acting, and Crowe gave him a lot of honest feedback and stuff, and later on Crowe even sent him sort of a almost like a care package type of thing at Cavill's school or something, and with the quote, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step to him, in terms of just like good luck with everything.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
Years later, Crowe meets Cavill on set, and he doesn't quite remember who he is, but he gets the feeling that they've met. And he's like, "Have we met before?"
Yeah.
And Cavill's like, "We did, and you gave me advice on acting." And Crowe was like, "What did I say?" And Cavill said, "Well, they pay you well, but they treat you like shit." And Crowe was like, "That's exactly what what I said. You are that boy." So,
wow,
that is
That's
cool
cool
that they got to reunite in that way, and it's awesome that Snyder was able to do that. I doubt that he knew that before he did the casting, but that's pretty cool. So,
I think there was some scene too. I think Goyer was on set that day or something where he was fucking with Crowe, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have Beppo the monkey over there. It's a CG monkey."
Really?
And Crowe was like, "What? Really?" Something like that. Some anecdote like that.
Oh, I gotta look that up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see. The scout ship is where we get the history lesson that I said in part 1. Like, this is where you could have cut in what actually happened on Krypton, because he tells them the same stuff anyway. But when the ship is showing all the stuff, we get Zod almost looking like a hero in that way, and that's was deliberate on Snyder's part. He said that he wanted Zod to look that way because in his mind, he feels that he's the good guy. He's always the one who's right, sort of thing. So that's cool.
Right.
And around this time, this is where the Superman suit is produced by the ship. And what Snyder said on the commentary is that this is not a suit that was there for 200,000 years or 20,000 years.
this was a suit generated when Clark inserted the chip into the ship. The AI communicated to the ship to create the suit. So don't be mistaken that this thing has been just sitting there for thousands of years. It hasn't. So that's an interesting detail. The suit coming from Krypton, or specifically Jor-El, the AI Jor-El, is also from the Donner movie. This is not what traditionally happens. What traditionally happens is that Martha Kent makes it for Clark using the Kryptonian blankets that he was wrapped in when he arrived. So they also have to come up with all sorts of different explanations on how she was able to even sew with Kryptonian clothes. But
I like the newer one more. This is one area where I'm not a traditionalist. I prefer.
You prefer
this.
it coming from? Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense because of the shield.
The ship. All
no
that
matter,
stuff. A little bit more sci-fi explanation, I think.
No matter what, it does have to be Kryptonian clothes in order to explain why the hell he doesn't always fall apart whenever he gets like shot at or going through flame,
going into the sun and shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. Apparently, this is a rumor that was posted on the Instagram of Australian filmmaker Ryan Unicombe, who is doing the documentary on Justice League Mortal. And he did a post that I have since found deleted, so I don't know why he deleted it or where it came from beforehand, but he said that if you notice in the beginning of Man of Steel, when Jor-El first dons the armor to fight Zod, he's in almost, you can see the Superman type suit that he's wearing before he dons the armor. And Ryan posted a picture of what looked like the Henry Cavill wearing the same exact armor as Jor-El. And what he was saying was that there was an original idea where Clark would go into the fight with Zod wearing his father's armor. But then during the fight, it all gets fucked up and stripped away, and he's left with the Under Armour chainmail, which is the Superman suit.
That's a great idea. Yeah. I mean, that would have been really cool.
Also represents like his Kryptonian side being literally stripped away, so that's kind of a nice little detail. I'm not sure how the cape would have fit into it, but it's a cool idea and would have definitely looked, unusual for him to go to the first fight like that. So that's cool. Let's see. Snyder identifies that the family suit for the House of El is the black suit. But the public suit that is generated by the AI is meant to be a suit of optimism, which is why it has the colors that it does. Notice that he's got a much brighter suit than any of the other Kryptonians we've seen. So, and then before we go to the break, I thought I would go into one of the lines of dialogue that Jor-El says here is from one of Andrew's favorite comic book writers, Grant Morrison. It's from Olsen.
Grant Morrison. I can't stop talking about him. That bald Scottish man. I have shaken his hand in real life at a convention.
He wrote All-Star Superman with art by Frank Quitely, but one of his monologues from Jor-El actually makes it into Man of Steel. It's a little bit rewritten by David Goyer, but I thought that I would have Andrew read the original monologue.
You have given them an ideal to aspire to, embodied their highest aspirations. They will race and stumble and fall and crawl and curse. And finally, they will join you in the sun, Kal-El.
Thank you, Mr. Crowe.
Crikey. No, okay, this is great. When we get to the end, I'm going to circle back to this right here. So hold me to that. But yeah, that's an important point, I think.
Sounds good to me.
For later.
So when we get back...
Stay tuned.
When we get back from the break, we'll go into Clark's first flight.
Need some adventure in your life? What Mad Universe is a podcast about the history of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror, where we delve the depths of pop culture history.
Everything's the same politically, but we have ray guns.
The actual motive isn't to explore something that's, quote, scientifically possible or...
But neither is Star Wars, and I know there's arguments about that, but I would definitely consider Star Wars science fiction.
You haven't read Dune!
No, I haven't.
You can never be the Kwisatz Haderach. What Mad Universe on the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Adam West, old buddy, old pal, thanks for coming in for this audition.
Thank you for bringing me in.
Lovely to have you here, Hoss. So, we have your sides here. and just have at the lines for your audition to be the next James Bond. So I'm sure it's a shoe-in, but this is more of a formality, really. And just go ahead. There you go.
Thank you, old chum. Before I start, I just want to make clear, you want me to be different from Batman, right?
We want you to put your Adam West flair onto the next James Bond. Let's put it that way.
Say no more, old chum. I'd like a vodka martini, shaken, not stirred.
Now, is that you're okay? Pretty good, but
Thank you.
just wondering if you could. I mean, why was that like a question?
You said to add the Adam West flair.
Okay, well let's try it again. Maybe try it a little differently this time. Okay, so take 2. Go ahead.
I'll have a vodka martini, shaken, not stirred.
Okay, that was a little bit better. All right, so let's move on to the second page there on your sides. In this scene, you're going to be talking to Blofeld, and you've uncovered his evil plan.
Say no more. Blofeld, you foul fiend! See, I've added the foul fiend, the Adam West flair. You foul fiend! You and your cat crimes, I will bring you to justice.
Okay, starting to think this wasn't such a good idea. I guess you just talk like that.
What seems to be the problem, old chum?
I think you forgot where Batman ends and West begins. And then it's seeping into all your other roles there, Hoss.
Mr. Broccoli, I have range.
Okay, we're going to give you one more try. This is a fight scene, okay, buddy? We got some stuntmen here ready for you to, they can take a punch. You don't have to pull your punches too much with these guys. So, take it away.
I'm ready.
Okay, let's see it. Let's see how well you do action as Bond. So here you go.
And bam! Pow! Zappo! Wham! I think I did pretty good.
Wow, this is amazing. It's like the soundtrack appeared out of thin air. You know what?
You have ways to revitalize the franchise.
All right, so basically, maybe I'm the first guy in Hollywood to say this because it is the 60s, but I'll have my people call your people. So it's been great, and we'll see how it goes from here.
Very well, Mr. Broccoli. I'll see myself out. Oh, thank God. I did not want another franchise.
All right, everybody, if you like that sketch right there, we have that, plus news, plus we're bringing back some opinion pieces and review-type stuff and all kinds of stuff in our $5 tier on Patreon. So just go to patreon.com/superherostuffpod, and if you become part of the $5 tier, you can see these new bonus episodes. Basically, consider it Superhouse DLC.
Oh! Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from such films as Darren Aronofsky's Batman Year One and Joel Schumacher's Batman Unchained. And right now, you're listening to Superhero Stuff You Should Know. Ha ha!
And we're back. Andrew has his Man of Steel Blu-ray set, limited edition, as he said. I am jelly because I don't have such a thing. I had to watch it on HBO Max like a fucking layman.
Oh, you didn't get one of these limited edition, only 50,000 in the world ever made, big ass Blu-ray 3D thingies?
I did not.
It is great.
I did not. But I think Man of Steel has more of a emotional significance for you than it is for me. So
yeah, I bought this immediately.
Yeah.
I only have a few Blu-rays. This is one of them.
All I got Superman-wise is this 1940s Siegel Schuster Superman here. That's
also good.
That's what I got. My
Also
Superman
good.
shirt is on the way. I was gonna get
Hell
one,
yeah.
but it's taken forever to get here. So that's why I'm in the Wayne. I'm still in Batman clothes. This is the Wayne Enterprises logo that's on the satellite that Clark and Zod are fighting
that's right.
on. Because
That's
that
right.
was back when they were still using the Nolan logo. But anyway,
That's
before
right.
Superman can fight Zod, he has to learn how to fly. So we're now in one of my favorite scenes of the movie, which is Clark learning how to fly. He does start by leaping, which Snyder said makes sense because when you would first try it out, you probably would try it as more of a jump first because you don't know how to do it yet. But that also is call back to the Golden Age Superman, who hadn't flown yet because that hadn't been established until the radio series and the Fleischer Superman. Originally, the Golden Age Superman would just leap, which is why you have the phrase about him leaping tall buildings in a single bound. It comes from that idea.
I think I did pick up on that when I first saw it too. I thought that was pretty cool.
No, it's awesome, and I think Snyder says it's not until Clark realizes the true strength of his power that he basically accepts that he can fully fly, type of thing. So I really love this. I think for me, I love the idea of flight being like him embracing the power, embracing some side of himself, which is why in the Radio Superman episode I talked about how much I love Gene Luen Yang's Superman Smashes the Klan, where he doesn't really fly until at the very end when he finally publicly admits that he's an alien in order to go up against the KKK. Like that was just when you make it all, when you tie in a superpower with the emotion like that and about acceptance and accepting who you are, it becomes so much more than just a dude who can fly.
I agree with that. There was a scene in one of the X-Men movies, I think First Class, where it's not his first time using it, I think, but Professor X goes into Magneto's mind and sees a beautiful memory, and then as soon as he leaves his mind, he's crying, and it's just like you successfully combined the power with an emotion, and this is not exactly the same thing, but it's similar. It's a similar thing.
Did you have something else on the flight scene?
Yeah, I do. So, this is my most miserable detail. In the Man of Steel Japan premiere that I did watch, I think maybe live or as soon as it came out, they had a premiere months later in Japan, right? Snyder reveals that he was inspired by the anime Birdie the Mighty for the flight scenes in particular. Maybe I should have seen that by this point, but I haven't seen that anime yet. But a lot of the times movement and shit is very dynamic in anime. I'm pretty sure Snyder's an anime fan. I mean, he's got Dragon Ball over the fighting in the end and stuff. So I feel like not many people probably saw this Japan premiere. So I thought I would, share this little tidbit.
That's awesome. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard the anime influences of the flight. I mean, everyone talks about Dragon Ball with him versus Zod, but not necessarily any influence on the flight scene. So that's pretty cool.
Birdie the Mighty.
First I've heard of it.
So there you go, baby.
Deep dives. We give you the deep dives.
There's a deep cut right there, man. That premiere shit's probably still on YouTube, if you want to check it out. He probably said some other shit that I forgot, but I was like, oh shit, anime influence, that's cool. Nolan obviously likes Paprika, which, everybody says that, he stole for Inception. So, these guys are watching anime, man. Everybody, they totally
Absolutely.
Are, so.
Let's see. Our next Smallville flashback is an infamous one that we have talked about during the Superman the movie deep dive, and it is the death of Jonathan Kent. So here we go.
Yeah.
Jonathan Kent dying, but Martha surviving.
Critics. Voting critics already.
Don't
like it.
But let's go into why. So Jonathan Kent dying and Martha surviving is another one of those things that comes from previous Superman adaptation, Christopher Reeve in the Richard Donner one. But beforehand, it was the George Reeves Superman in the first episode. His father dies of a heart attack. So this idea of Jonathan Kent dying and Martha being a widow sort of originates from there as opposed to the comics. And Snyder pretty much takes the same exact cue. It also happened in Smallville as well. So a lot of people are doing this, even though I personally think it would have been more refreshing to have both Ma and Pa Kent alive because of the fact that it wasn't done in the previous movies. But that's just me. Anyway, this is different, however, because Jonathan Kent does not die from a heart attack. He dies from a natural disaster. He dies from a tornado.
A twister.
Yes. He needed Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt to help rescue him.
It's a cow flying in the fucking man. I saw Twister in the theater, dude. Did you see it in the theater?
We rented it on Blockbuster, I think.
Okay, so I was already into movies when I was a kid. Obviously, I mean, a lot of kids are, but anyway, but it was off my radar. My parents were like, "We're going to go see Twister," and I hadn't even seen a trailer for it. And it just blew my mind when I was a kid. I was like, this movie's awesome. I loved Twister. Yeah.
An early role, too, for Philip Seymour Hoffman, I think. I think he's in there.
Was Hoffman
I think
in
he
that
is.
shit?
I think
It's
he's
been
one
a
of the
while since
cameramen.
I've seen it.
I might be wrong, but let us know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you're probably
Yeah.
right. Yeah. But that cow scene is so.
It's either that or I got him mixed up with his role in Boogie Nights. We'll see. In terms of him being behind the scenes crew.
Yeah.
Clark helping during a tornado, or tornadoes happening in Smallville, has actually been established in a lot of different things. In the comics, Clark is shown saving people during a tornado in Secret Origin. Again, Geoff Johns, Gary Frank. He's shown doing it in Superman for All Seasons by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. He was shown doing
That's
it
right,
in
yeah.
the Smallville Season 1 finale. Again, more Smallville influence. But before all that, he did a rescue from a tornado in the 1948 Kirk Allen serial, where he rescues his father from the tornado. So this is definitely the opposite of what happens in the 1948 Superman serial. I'll have you go into your thoughts then on this plot point.
This was one I never defended. I never liked this scene. I never turned around on it. I never turned toward it or whatever. It just allowing your father to die like that. It's just not great. And then you get that shot of Cavill with his big ass mouth just wide open, fucking just screaming like a maniac. And then when you have the same thing again when he snaps a neck, it's Cavill's good at the intensity, but it's almost awkward. It's just, he just puts his hands up like, no, don't show yourself. Right. Like, dude, do you really not? He could go so fast, probably most people can't even see it. Come on, you know what I mean? Like it's, and then the whole thing about the heart attack in the original, it's just, every Superman fan knows this, but just to reiterate for people that might not know in the know on this, it's just thematically important in the sense that Superman can save so many people, but he can't save somebody from a heart attack. There's, that affects him, that affects his character, that there's drama there, and I know this movie's trying to be different and they're trying to do new things. It just seems like they could have done something. Maybe that's not a heart attack, but just not this whole tornado thing either.
Right.
I don't know what it could have been. They could have had, maybe it's too inside baseball, but maybe he has a heart attack from
the tornado.
No, he has from that, but a heart attack from, he goes into a general store or supermarket and it starts to get robbed, and he has a heart attack just from it being robbed, because that's either Siegel or Schuster's real life father died in a heart attack, not from being shot apparently, but I mean his coroner's report is on the internet. If it's real, it could be fake. Right. It's the internet. I get it, but it looks sort of real to me. And I forget who it is, Siegel or Schuster, one of them. I just can't believe this is on the internet. The real report is online, and it shows that it's not from a gunshot. He has a heart attack. One of the creators of Superman, everybody, back up for a little bit. One of the creators of Superman, his father dies in a heart attack during a robbery. So maybe they could have done that. I don't know. Maybe that's too much.
I do think
it's overstepping some
the power
bounds.
of the heart attack is the idea that this is something that Superman can't really do much against, other than maybe rushing him to the hospital. But at that point, it's already... Who knows?
Real quick sometimes, though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean? As opposed to the probable in this tornado is the fact that it is something that you see Superman do a lot against in terms of rescuing people. It's
time for that debut, I think. You know what I mean? Stop.
To me, so the main plot point, if we're going to play devil's advocate, is the idea that Jonathan Kent wanted to protect his son from having to reveal himself to the point where he sacrifices himself to ensure that secret happens. My problem with that is twofold. One, Superman is going to have to reveal himself in this movie at some point anyway. So this would have been a good time. The other one is, let's not forget, a whole bunch of people in Smallville already know. The kids he saved in the bus already know that there's something up with this kid, with this guy. Pete Ross knows. Lana knows. They kind of already know this. Right. So I'm like, you can't really say it's about protecting the secret either when so many people kind of already know.
Yeah. I don't know how they're going to
I go critics, but I
that.
personally think Jonathan Kent like this would have been very powerful because I'll do it this way in terms of like if I'm going to pitch a new version of this. I didn't really care for Clark being like, "You're not my real dad," type of thing, because that's so cliche. But I would excuse it if Jonathan Kent is very much about, "Hey, don't save me," and Clark disobeys him and saves him anyway from the tornado. And then afterwards, Jonathan's like, "Why? I told you to protect yourself." And Clark says, "Because you're my dad." And then that would go into
I mean, there you go.
That's how you would.
Come on.
That's
it.
He reveals himself, and suddenly that's how Lois finds out about Clark being in Smallville in this version. That's how a whole bunch of people, maybe all of the town knows, but they keep it secret, which is kind of what they already showed in the movie anyway. Like this isn't. Yeah. These aren't people who are necessarily going to call up the government as soon as possible. These are people who like know each other by name. Like they would be out to protect him, which they already do in the movie. So why don't you just take that a step further? Maybe Kevin Costner was, I don't know, too expensive for them to have a lot of scenes with. I don't know, but like it's one where it would have been nice to still have him as
He's
a president.
Such a great pick. He's such a good pick for Paul Kent.
And it's not like they couldn't afford him for Batman vs Superman either, because he's in it too as a ghost. So I'm like, you could have just had him be alive.
Yeah. Come on, man. You're Paul Kent. That is so iconic, dude. That's Americana.
Yeah.
Come on.
So, anyway, we're siding with critics, which means that we're at critics 3, Snyder 1, I believe, on this. So,
I thought I would support Snyder more than this, but these particular points, it's just hard. It's hard to.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to.
Let's see. We do get a little bit more of the Daily Planet after this flashback, because Clark ends up telling Lois about what happened with how his father died, and Lois goes back to the Daily Planet and says she's not going to print the story. We do meet 2 other characters. One is Steve Lombard, played by Michael Kelly. Steve Lombard is an actual character from the comics. He's a younger, athletic-looking guy with a mustache, but he is, in the comics, he's more of a bro in the comics.
He's in the animated shows sometimes too, right? He kind of like gives everybody a hard time.
He's definitely an all-star Superman
in the Office
as well.
I think I know who you're talking about.
He's in there.
Yeah.
Let's see. The other one is a character named Jenny, who's an intern. Now, this is interesting because a lot of fans at the time thought her full name was Jenny Olsen, and thought that she was either a gender-bent Jimmy Olsen or his sister. However,
oh God!
Remember this?
I remember reading about this. Yes, I haven't thought about this
mess.
in years.
Yes, Rebecca Mueller plays Jenny, but her full name apparently in the universe is Jenny Jurwich, not Jenny Olsen, which means she's not related to Jimmy Olsen at all. And we would find out she's definitely not Jimmy Olsen in the next movie, where Jimmy Olsen turns out to be a CIA agent who gets his brains blown out. So he's not even a very good CIA agent in this continuity.
What is Snyder doing, man?
This wasn't just rampant fan speculation. This came because an official movie guide had a picture of Perry White with Jenny, and it said in the caption, "Perry White and Jenny Olsen look at the destruction," or something like that. So somebody along the way fucked up or thought like, Jenny, they must be that this is Jenny Olsen, when in reality that's not what happened. So Jenny Jurwich is an original character for this continuity. Don't think that she's
This
Jimmy
is the
Olsen.
only Superman movie without any Jimmy Olsen.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. That is the only one.
Yeah.
Batman versus Superman technically does.
Technically. But it's not a Superman movie only either, though. But he does show up, for sure, of course.
Let's see. When we get to present day, Clark goes to visit his mom and gets greeted by Dusty, the dog. The dog from the past who Jonathan saved was named Hank, but I guess Hank is dead at this point. This is a tradition in the comics where Clark grew up with dogs on the Smallville farm. In the TV show Smallville, as well as in the comic, I think Superman for All Seasons, the dog's name was Shelby. In Man of Steel by John Byrne, it was Rusty. So we got a whole bunch of dogs that he grew up with in Smallville.
Not just all Crypto,
yeah, it's
y'all.
not just Crypto. Man, imagine if they told Russell Crowe that Crypto was going to be in this movie.
That would have been awesome. This goes back to the Grant Morrison thing where he explains how he figured out how to write Superman. He's just a normal dude, but he walks his dog around the rings of Saturn. You know what I mean? But he still walks his dog. It's crypto,
Right,
obviously, but it's just this is. Again, of course, Superman has a dog. They're a fucking farmhouse in fucking Kansas. Like, it's going to be part of the mix.
The Kent farm apparently was built from scratch. That is not an actual house. They built that, and it stayed there for a couple years. They even built the whole entire interior, and it's the same Kent farm that they used in Batman vs. Superman. The room for Clark is never seen in the movie, but they did finally get to use it at the end of Batman vs. Superman when Lois is mourning over Clark's death. So that is cool that they went through. They went all out, in terms of creating that, because I feel like, not to make this about DC versus Marvel, but it's insane just how much is CG in the Marvel movies. How much of Endgame was green screen. And I get that.
Yeah,
some of it is probably to avoid spoilers, because if you put all those, especially if they shot the whole Thanos takedown in like a random field somewhere, that would have leaked out.
I think it's but it's also like Grandpappy Nolan on
That's
DC,
true.
kind of godfathering the whole thing, and for Interstellar, instead of making CG wheat fields, they grew the fucking wheat field.
They actually did that in Superman Returns as well. They grew a whole field just for young Clark to fly around in it, even though it has nothing to do with the rest of the story in Superman Returns. But we'll get there when we get to Superman Returns. Let's see. Then, before we end this episode, we're going to get a little bit into the lead up to the invasion. So, during the invasion part, we meet General Swanwick, played by Harry Lennix. It's believed that he's named Swanwick because the Swan part might be to a reference to Kurt Swan, famous Superman artist. So that's the speculation. I don't know. That was never confirmed. At least I can't find on that. But if anybody knows more about that, let us know. However, what is known, and isn't really a spoiler because Snyder and Harry Lennix are now on record saying it, but Swanwick is secretly the Martian Manhunter, which means that this is actually a DC crossover on here, which is funny because Zod at one point is just like, you are not alone, there are aliens among you, he looks like one of you, but he is not one of you. And just imagine Swanwick's internal reaction just being like, oh fuck, on that.
He starts sweating.
Let's see, I will do a deeper dive in our Patreon in terms of the connections of Martian Manhunter and Superman throughout comic book and adaptation history, but Carl Lumley was the voice of Martian Manhunter in the Justice League cartoon, and it seems like after that he was almost always portrayed as by an African American actor in an African American disguise, as opposed to the early comics where he was a white dude as John Jones.
Oh yeah.
So this carried over when he was in Smallville. He was played by Phil Morris. When he was in Supergirl, he's played by Jesus, what's the guy's name? He's David. Oh God, I feel so embarrassed because I love him in the show Supergirl. David Harewood. Sorry, David Harewood is Martian Manhunter. He's my favorite part of that show in there, and he's also in disguise as a government official in there. And then we got Harry Lennix now as Martian Manhunter. So that's pretty cool. This TV warning from Zod is very similar to the Superman Earth 1 comic by J. Michael Straczynski and art by Shane Davis. Have you read this comic?
That's one of the best covers. Yes, I have read it.
So,
I think, and it's Earth 1, so it's a little bit different than usual. It's basically Elseworlds, but that's good. That's the one where they kind of redo the scene where he catches the bullet, right? Or no, that's Man of Steel.
That's Birthright.
That's Birthright. I'm getting
Earth 1 is the one where it's pretty much like this movie where it's him up against an invasion, and he's in basically. Wait, hold on.
I have it. I've read it.
I just have it here.
It's been a while. I don't remember everything. Yeah, these covers are cool. This one and the other cover is really cool. This is some of my favorite Superman covers.
I mean, the other one has him above a whole bunch of skulls, which is an image that we see later in this movie.
Snyder couldn't wait to get to that visual.
Yeah,
I mean, it is a very cool visual.
Artist Shane Davis has been on Twitter basically criticizing Man of Steel and Snyder for basically following his imagery but not giving him a thank you in the credits. In it, but there is a lot from these comics that make it into Man of Steel, at least, when it comes to this specific plot point, both the villain Tyrell in Earth 1 and Zod in this movie spend decades really trying to track down Kal-El after Jor-El managed to launch Kal-El away from him. Kal-El was able to escape from this guy, and his way of finding him on Earth is to make this grand announcement worldwide that's translated to all different languages to ask him to come forward, or else everything's going to suffer. So that's right out of Earth 1.
We're back at the sci-fi take, the invasion, the day the Earth stood still kind of influence. This was a cool scene. I mean, this is a scene where Snyder shines. I think. Yeah,
there's a nice foreboding element to it that Shannon definitely nails when it comes to that monologue and that delivery.
He does. I've come on a sea of stars. I remember. It's good. It's good.
That's one of those where it's like Terrence Stamp might have been chilling in terms of the whole kneel before Zod thing, but Shannon is chilling in a different way, a much different way in here. If anything, Stamp was like very much overplaying it, and Shannon, I mean, he does overplay it when it comes to him being pissed off, but in this specific,
he's sort of overdoing it, but it's still cool.
In this specific scene, though, he's underplaying it to a good degree. Where it works really well.
Sea of stars.
Let's see. So Clark, to figure out, and this goes to our final Snyder versus critics. I think you know where we're going with this. To figure out what to do, Clark does not go to his mom or to Lois, but he goes to a priest.
Yeah. Dude. Okay. So let me talk about this for a second. I brought this up several times before, but again, if this is your first series, if you search for just Man of Steel shit and it's your first time finding us, I'm going to say this for you. Dear listeners and watchers, viewers. So at this time, it was revealed that Warner Brothers was giving out sermon ideas to churches around America around this time, sermon ideas that center on Superman. And Superman being related to Christ or whatever. There was some sort of connection, I'm assuming. Actually, if you can find something out there, dear listener, please let us know if you have one of those sermons or whatever that Warner Brothers did send out. We should probably just Google that ourselves. But I'm putting the call out there. If you do find it, that'd be sweet to actually see. But and it's just one of those things where it's like these guys at Warner Brothers are not like diehard evangelicals. No. I feel like this is a way to just sell their movie in church. It's all about the cash, right? So I just kind of felt like, and Snyder doesn't seem overly religious to me either, but this just seems like one of those things that would have been put in there by the producers, like, hey, we need a church scene. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're selling sermons to people.
Get those Bible belts in the seats.
Yeah, it's just a little bit much. And then there's that scene where it's like, later on, we'll get to it, but Ancha Feora, there's this little scene about evolution and blah 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 blah, and then there's like, it's a little bit, it has almost like the villains are very pro science. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Man.
So you know what I mean? There's a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. The villains talk about evolution. So I know I'm reaching for stuff here. I really am. I get it. But I just couldn't help but think about that. Like, do we need that? I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna go with critics.
I'm gonna go with them too because it feels very random. He has no relationship with this priest. Maybe if he did, maybe if he was his father figure growing up after his father died, it would be understandable. But there's no established relationship here on it. Like, it seems like Martha would be a better choice for him to talk to, or even Lois at this point, because he has an actual relationship with them. As opposed to this random dude.
What's he doing at this random church?
You really, like, Jonathan Kent couldn't figure out how to raise an alien. You think this priest is going to tell him what to do? Like, I'm like, this is dumb. Also,
you let it slide kind of because, not to stereotype too much, but people in rural areas, it's not very uncommon for people in those areas to go to church and shit like that. I get it, 100%. Makes sense, but still, as a movie, it probably would have been better, like you're saying, if he went to Lois, if he went to his mom,
or
and they could have had maybe a religious maybe Ma Kit says something religious there or something, and you would have had
you would have had your cake and eaten it too.
Yeah,
you know what
like
I'm saying?
in-
But this whole detour to a church,
like
is
in
just weird.
Daredevil, like he does turn to a priest for help, but he does have an established relationship with them in both the Daredevil movie and the TV show on Netflix. But that's also because it's well established that Matt Murdock's Catholicism is part of his character and is part of his upbringing, and
He's a Catholic. That's a
yeah,
devil.
and that
just think about that.
Yeah,
that
and it ties
dichotomy
into
there.
his persona, so it's a huge part of his character.
Yeah.
Here, it's like it's never really established that there's any religion that's tied into Clark's character. Like if they really wanted to have this priest, then like put him in the earlier scenes in the flashback, give him an established relationship, have the priest sort of look out for him and know his powers. And it's just like, okay, my father's not around anymore. You're the closest thing that I have to a dad. If this guy's like his Alfred, what do I do? And maybe the priest is like, it's not up to me.
Right.
It's again.
Right.
At some point, you are your own man type of thing, if that's what it is. Or maybe Jonathan Kent is still fucking alive after he saved him for the tornado, and he's the one who tells him this. Any one of these things.
How much are we going to rewrite this? Like,
again, we
should have gotten that Ben.
we do
pass.
like this movie, by the way. I know
that
that critics are winning on this one, but we do like this movie. We're not haters on here. We do agree with a lot of the criticisms, though, for what we've covered so far. Also, in terms of heavy-handedness, it's well noted that right behind Clark when he's talking is not only Jesus, but Jesus with a red robe over his clothes, like the cape.
I haven't thought about the robe part. That's interesting. I know it's a stained glass,
Yeah,
but yes,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
that's interesting.
so,
okay. It's just it's like cultural appropriation almost. I know this is again maybe reaching, but Superman, invented by two Jewish kids from Ohio. It's the Moses allegory of the spaceship being Moses going down the River Nile, all that kind of stuff, and then it's kind of appropriated into not Judaism, but goes from Judaism to Christianity. It's like, dude, do your research, man. This is just doesn't seem. If he went to a fucking temple, maybe
went to the
would've-
rabbi. That would have been
better.
interesting.
Yeah, went to
Yeah.
a rabbi. Come on,
I would have been
that
down
would have
for
been
that,
interesting.
yeah. Let's see.
Rabbi Siegel, dude, or something. You know what I mean?
I'm open to that idea of him having a rabbi he turns to named Rabbi Siegel. Maybe not in the movies right now because it's too late to establish that, but in like its own comic run type of thing, just to acknowledge that.
Shit, why not?
The priest does come back in Batman vs Superman, but in a different role. He's the one who gives the eulogy over Clark's grave at the end.
Oh, it's the same guy.
actor.
I did
Yeah,
not
it's the same
notice
actor,
that.
yep.
Wow, he has a comedic take. Zod publicly says he's after the guy, or there's some comedic part in Man of Steel at the end of that church scene. His reaction is comedic or something. Am I totally forgetting
I
this?
don't remember. Part of it might
Okay.
be just because I'm so distracted that the scene exists that I'm like, oh yeah, let me pay attention to this maybe. But the actor also does kind of look like the way that a pastor character is drawn in Superman for All Seasons, where there is a recurring, basically what I was talking about, where there is a recurring character who's a pastor at the church in Smallville, who's a thin white man with like reddish hair type. So he could have been cast due to that resemblance. Who knows? Or it could just be a coincidence. When Clark's there, he has another flashback to growing up where he's bullied. This time, not by Dicksplash extraordinaire Pete Ross, but by
DSE?
by two others. The main one who's antagonizing him is named Kenny Braverman, who in the comics did grow up with Clark in Smallville and became the supervillain Conduit. So Conduit is being planted there. I doubt that he's going to be the villain of a Man of Steel sequel anytime soon, but he's planted in there.
Right.
Apparently, the other kid is supposed to be Whitney Fordham, who I said was mentioned earlier as the Fordham boy, who was basically Lana's boyfriend and kind of Clark's antagonist in the first season of Smallville. So if that makes sense.
Okay.
Clark here, this is where Clark's reading Plato. It's where he's got the book.
Yeah.
Snyder said he wanted to show that Clark had aspirations beyond Smallville on that. So
Okay, another plot point here
Go ahead.
about the book. I think I haven't read the fucking book, but what I've read about the book about Plato's Republic is that he's talking about like stratified societies or something. I think there's
it goes back to there's some connection with like Krypton's stratified society, or you know what I mean. I don't know what. It's a very loose connection, but ultimately they're trying to show that Clark's a smart kid, I guess. But there's other connections maybe you could draw.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting. You would think that, like in the Is Superman Cool episode, you brought up that he's representative of different philosophies. Batman in some ways is Nietzsche.
Oh yeah.
That
and the Superman is Kant.
Maybe he should have been reading Kant. Who knows?
That would have been maybe a little bit better, but yeah, it's go back and listen to that episode. What's that?
Is Superman cool?
Yeah, it's Superman cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That we go.
Yeah, if you guys are on YouTube, you guys can find our playlists where we have all of our Superman related episodes in one playlist. So that should be one of the episodes there for you guys.
But it's also in Spotify and everywhere else too.
Yeah, if you want to look that up separately. Let's see. And then last thing on this before we wrap is that in the background, after Pete Ross sort of helps him out, or around that time, you get to see that there's a sign for Sullivan's in the background. This seems like it's a reference to Smallville yet again, where the character Chloe Sullivan was basically a series regular, played by Allison Mack, who is now in deep shit for Nexium, and we're trying to recruit Smallville actors into a sex cult.
Dude, just avoid cults. If you take any advice from me today, avoid cults.
Man. How many people have we saved just by telling them this?
So many, Ben.
Apparently, she wasn't successful in recruiting Kristen. I mean, I don't know the full story about her and Kristen Crook. I know Kristen Crook brushed with it, but I don't think she was as a huge part of it. But she did apparently recruit Caleb Blue, who played Zod in Smallville, because he's in a documentary about what he went through when he was part of that. So it's a
just
big shame.
Wild, man.
But
you looked into Nexium and shit?
Not on a personal level, but more of just like finding out what the hell happened. Yeah.
Oh
yeah. It's fucked up.
The Val's on HBO. Everybody knows. Yeah, it's fucked up.
So let's see. Our score, wrapping up part 2, is we swear we like this movie. We like Zack Snyder. Snyder 1, critics 4.
All right, positive about this movie. We're gonna wrap on a positive. Color palette is bleached, but because there's a lot of scenes in cold areas, it works a lot actually with bleached out colors a little bit in that area. I kind of like those cool colors, especially in those scenes. So I would do like a colorful suit, but I give him a pass. Again, the fighting, probably the best Superman fighting we've ever seen. Right. Really,
we haven't gotten there yet. But
we haven't gotten there. We haven't gotten there yet. But just to be positive, and what else? I mean, all the acting is top notch, of course. Everybody's really good. I'm a big Cavill fan. I have Rakoff, who used to come on the podcast as our Game of Thrones correspondent way back in the day. He always says Cavill's too stiff, but I don't know. I like Cavill. I think he's cool. I think he's a good pick. And Snyder's probably really behind those decisions, and yeah, so just trying to be positive. Any positives from you?
I was about to say I can see where Rakoff is coming from, but I don't think it's fully Cavill's fault. But in terms of positives, that definitely wasn't a positive one. I really appreciate that this is the live-action cinematic debut of a lot of more obscure characters in the Superman verse. We got Feora. Sure, we had Ursa before, but now it's Feora. We got Pete Ross. We got Kenny Braverman. We got...
Feora's real badass in this. She's my favorite.
Yeah. She's next in line after Zod, clearly, on that. So
she should have had more lines because she was great.
I think it's really interesting how they reimagined Pete Ross here. I didn't really get too much into it earlier, but Pete Ross is supposed to be Clark's best friend and even knows his secret in the comics. Here, sure, after the whole Dicksplash thing and he saves him, he gets a bit of a character arc where he helps Clark up and sort of protects his secret to a certain extent. I wish there was more to him in modern day than just being an IHOP manager, but I'll take what I can get in terms of
product placement. I forgot about that. Yeah.
There's a fight with Feora in the middle of an IHOP, and I'm like, was this really the best location for this?
You got to get a movie made. Goddamn, they had to pay for that
fucking truck to be destroyed in real life.
Feora is just like, you humans and your pancakes. This is why we're superior. We don't eat this processed garbage.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, back to positives. I think that's a really interesting way to reimagine Pete Ross, as well as redo him in a way that honors his character while still honoring what Snyder wanted, which was to make Clark isolated growing up. Like, he doesn't have a best friend growing up in this continuity. Lorna might be the closest, but they like interact like once. It doesn't seem like they're super close.
There's not much going on
so,
there.
to have him grow up like that as a loner or whatever, it becomes more significant, I guess, when he does encounter people, as he's about to in this movie, who are from his homeworld. So that's pretty well done. But we will get into it in part 3 when Clark decides to reveal himself and wear the Superman suit in public. So stay tuned for that. And that is a superhero stuff you should know.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a few
Of steel.
we have a few fan comments for us to go over here. So one of those was on our Catwoman movie that never was. Thank you to, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, but to Win. He said, quote, oddball idea for a script. This was on the Catwoman script by Daniel Waters. He said, quote, I always remember attempts to read this, and I abruptly would quit reading because how I didn't like the script a whole lot. It wasn't really for me, but I would have loved a Catwoman movie with Michelle in it. If Catherine Bigelow wrote and directed it, that would have been interesting.
Wow, what a good pick.
Yeah.
So good.
But if I ever had a chance to rewrite the script, I just trashed the script and conceive a new story, which I always thought it should be The Long Kiss Goodnight meets Cat People from 1982 meets Catch Me If You Can meets Entrapment. So that's a lot of different
lot going on,
but I think I know where he's going with Long Kiss Goodnight, of course, being an action heroine thing with Gina Davis. Cat People.
Right.
I'm not super familiar with it, but I know that there's a thriller element involved, or
I'm
a supernatural
not familiar
element
with that
involved. Catch Me If You Can, Con Men in here, and some of the thing with Entrapment. Entrapment, of course, is famous with Catherine Zeta-Jones sexually going through the lasers, which is, I'm surprised we haven't gotten a Catwoman scene like that on film ever.
True.
He said, basically, my take on Catwoman would have been odd, like Waters' version, but it could be better. So, awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. I agree, Catherine Bigelow doing a Catwoman movie with Michelle Pfeiffer in the 90s would have been awesome on it.
Dude, okay, one of the best things, so she directed Point Break, right? One of the best things I ever heard was the most surprising thing about Point Break is just how good it is. It's like it's a movie that should not be good, and like that's a testament to Bigelow's ability. It's just so it's really great. So
let's see. Next is he's back. Sparkageddon 318.
Oh, he's back.
He
what up,
was
Sparky?
basically replying to us, talking about asking us about the Gotham deep dive, and we responded to that. His response to our response is, quote, thanks, I will check it out. I hope we get some good convo on Echo. Echo was their version of Harley Quinn in Gotham. He says, because she was my best version of Harley Quinn, and that's something I want to see in Matt Reeves' Batman universe, a dark red and black original Harley Quinn. So that could be cool, sort of more twisted Harley Quinn that's more dangerous than the, Margot Robbie comedic anti-heroine version that we have in Birds of Prey. So that could be cool to see if they ever do a new Harley Quinn on that.
There was like a DC Black.
Oh yeah, the Harleen,
R-rated one. Harleen, isn't that? I heard that was really
that
good.
Could be
I haven't
cool.
seen that, but that could be a good source for
Definitely
that.
Need to read that. Yeah.
I heard it was good. I talked to before COVID. I was in the comic shop and he was like, "Yeah, it's flying off the shelves."
All right, we'll check it out.
So.
Maybe it'll hit DC Universe Infinite if it hasn't already. I'll have to take a look.
It could be.
Let's see. And then last one is from Tab Martin on our Is Superman Cool episode. I thought it'd be appropriate to save his comment for our Man of Steel deep dive. His response was for the part, I guess, where I talk about how it'd be interesting to have Superman as played by an Asian man. And Tab Martin says, quote, Asian Superman, you mean Goku, ha ha. So I thought I would open it up to you because I'm not super familiar with Dragon Ball in terms of the Goku Superman similarities outside of Power Set, I should say, because I'm just like you know,
Okay.
there's more to a character than just the powers.
Okay. Well, okay. Surprisingly, there's not a lot, but there's a little bit going on there. He's from another planet. Vegeta. I can't believe we're talking about Dragon Ball right now. But anyway, so Vegeta calls him Kakarot, and that's like his Kal-El name. Vegeta's like a Zod, I guess, sort of. And you know, they have beef, of course, and he's super powered. He doesn't get his powers from the sun; it's from training a bunch, I guess. I forget. It's not super tight logic, I think, because it's Dragon Ball, but it's sort of there. And so the Kakarot Kal-El thing is similar. The power set's similar, but also, I think the main thing here is there's a little bit of like fan fiction rivalry going on there. Like, I again, I don't know for sure, but it seems like maybe in more Asian community, people are you know going for Goku more than Superman. I could be wrong about that. I don't know, but that there's a lot of fan fiction of them fighting.
Gotcha.
A lot. This is just kind of a thing online because they're a similar power set. People want to see it, and you know. I think we first saw Dragon Ball fights in the Matrix 2 and 3. Maybe mainly 3.
Yeah, the big one with Agent Smith.
Yeah, so at the end with like fly fighting. There's actually not a lot of that, I feel like. Even though we've had a lot of Superman shit.
Yeah,
but
it's true.
So there being a little bit, what kind of feels like a little bit of a Dragon Ball influence on the fighting in Man of Steel. I don't know if the Snyder's ever said anything about that publicly, but, you know, they're just inadvertently related, I think. I mean, kind of. I mean, the Kakarot Kal-El thing is, you know, there's something there, I think. There is some sort of influence there from that. He does draw a lot of influence, though, Akira Toriyama, but yeah,
nice.
I don't know. There might be more than that. There might be more than the Kakarot and Kal-El thing, but I can't remember at this time. But yeah, it's sort of there.
Well, Tab, let us know if there are other similarities that
Yeah.
Andrew didn't cover. But that's pretty interesting, I think. I've always seen the whole like Goku versus Superman type of thing, and I was just like, okay, I just figured that's more like people pitting two superpowered characters against each other, classic type of thing.
That's really what it boils down to. That's
Yeah.
what it is. But there are some other things going on there, maybe. And you know, Goku is, you know, kind of like he's a likable dummy. Okay, so his personality also is like way different than
Superman.
I mean, they're both likable, I guess, but yeah, Clark is smart and shit. But Goku is just like a lovable, not so smart guy.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's if you watch it, you'll see. When I first started watching it, I thought it was just cool martial arts shit, but really, Dragon Ball is a comedy. It boils down to it's a comedy with lots of martial arts. That's it. You know?
Pretty cool.
So
Nice.
there you go.
All right. Thanks, Tab. I think that's it for the fan comments. Over to you, Andrew.
Okay. Guess what? I'm adding Sparkageddon to the list. So thank you, Sparkageddon. SDCT Productions, Robert Schumann, good old Rob, Kooky Noms, Matt Herring, Elijah B, Shamrock Balls, Aaron Willett, Ian H, Dan D, Leon Mo, Super Inframan, and Douglas P. Those are our Patreon supporters and other supporters. So please check us out on patreon.com/superherostuffpod. And we got the $1 tier on there. That's called the Shasta Army. Shasta is a longtime supporter of ours. That's where that name comes from, if you must know. But the $5 tier is where you get the extra show, our Patreon show. We've already talked about it in this series a little bit. Generally, Ben does even deeper dive. You thought this shit was deep? We get even deeper. We went into fucking Raoism, by the way, speaking of Superman. The religion on Krypton. That's like, they mention it sometimes. They say praise Raoul and shit sometimes in the animated show, but that's not where it ends, guys. It goes even further. So there's episodes on that and other shit that's like even deeper. So it's every Friday, $5 a month, and you can cancel anytime. So
nice.
There you go. Superhouse merch, the Ben Man like a Batman type of thing with Ben. Illustration and my Indeed Wizard character drawn by Wolfie. There's merch with those illustrations on it, t-shirts, mugs, whatever, on superhousepod.redbubble.com. Okay, and then Redbubble's like TeePublic, if you know TeePublic. So anyway, leave us a review on iTunes, which would be great. And then also, we'd love new phone bumpers if you can. A bumper is like a little audio clip. Record this little audio clip of like, love what you guys are doing, or whatever. It could be weird, it could be totally nonsensical. It'd be funny. You think I won't put nonsense on this show? Think again. But yeah, record that on your phone. If you don't know, your phone more than likely already has a voice recorder app. Most people don't know it's there, but it is there. And send that to superhousepodcast@gmail.com. I'm Thunderwolf Drew on Instagram and Twitter. I'm also on YouTube, on which I do a lot of, we talked about Goku and shit just now, but like Japanese-centric content that I do, and like Japanese language, Japanese culture. I lived there for 3 years. I still talk about it, but stuff like that, cultural differences. I did one on my most popular thing I've done online ever is this documentary on Shinto and Buddhism, which are the two main religions of Japan. So that's on there, and other things like that. So yeah, that's youtube.com/user/ThunderwolfLives. ThunderwolfLives.com is another one. And check out Superhero Stuff You Should Know on YouTube as well at youtube.com/user/superherostuffpod. Or just search for it. You'll find it. That's it. Sorry I took forever. Ben.
You can also follow us on Twitter at SuperhousePod. We're also on Instagram at SuperheroStuffPod. You can also follow my Instagram at Ben1Writer, as well as the Instagram of my cat, Alfie. My cat, Alfred. My son, Alfred Pennyworth. So you can follow him at Alfie Pennyworth Cat. He is a ginger cat with a bow tie.
He has a soul, okay?
Yes, he has a soul of an old British man. That's why he's named that. He's got the white beard coloring that makes it look like he's got the facial hair. So,
ironically, though, you're his buddy.
Yeah, that's what it turned out to be. I'm like, maybe I should have named him Bruce, and I would be Alfred. Especially because he's also very good at hiding. So I'm like, shit.
Yeah, okay.
I see what's up.
Once he gets more comfortable at your place, though, he'll just be like, hanging out.
He is, but he's also very good at hiding, even when he's not.
Yeah.
He was
Just
taught by
like
the
that.
League of Shadows. And then you can check out my writing website, ben1writer.com, if you want to, if you kind of liked any of the things that I was pitching here as alternatives to it. That's not to say that, I'm not trying to say that I'm better than Snyder or anything like that. It's just my proposals for if I had to fix things in that situation. If someone asked me, hey, what do you think would have been better? That's what I would say.
Everybody's got their own headcanon, right? Everybody, a lot of fans have, especially at this point in the game with so many movies out. It's just that kind of thing.
Exactly. Right? So, hopefully one day I will get to do my own Man of Steel or cut of a Justice League movie. But until that time, I'll just continue to do this for you guys and stay tuned for different things on that website and maybe even a future YouTube channel for me on there. So, thank you very much for tuning in. And part 3 will be us, I think, potentially wrapping up our discussion on Man of Steel as we talk about the big fights and the destruction of arguably both Smallville and Metropolis when it comes to this movie. So stay tuned for that.
Right. Stay tuned, baby.
Ben signing off.
Signing off.